When you think about it and you think about leadership, Wendy, how does your marketing background influence your leadership style? Do you apply any marketing techniques to leading people?
That's a great question. I definitely do. And it goes back to one of the earlier answers. I often get asked this as a female, and I think it probably applies to both men and women. But people will ask me, because yet and still, typically, often, I am the only woman in a leadership setting, in a very senior leadership setting. I can be one of a couple, but we're certainly not at 50-50. And the question I'll invariably get asked is, how do you make sure you're heard? How do you make sure that you cut through? And do you adjust your style to be heard? And I think women particularly are quite surprised when I answer, yes, I do, because they go, then you're not your true self. You're not your authentic self if you have to adjust. And I say, no, not at all. This is marketing. Marketing, what we do as marketers is we understand an audience. We create a message that will compel that audience to take a certain action that will create a certain outcome for a brand and a company. That's what marketing is. Well, I can apply that quite simply to that boardroom. I have an audience. I want them to hear my message so that they take an action that creates the outcome that I want. It's exactly the same thing. Therefore, it's on me to make sure the audience hears me. It's not on my audience to make sure they hear me. That's not the way it works. And so I'm quite comfortable and, in fact, desiring to assess and understand the audience I'm talking to, understand what their objections might be, their habits, their needs, their wants. Or do they have short attention spans, or do they need a lot of detail? I mean, it could be on one end of the spectrum, the other end. Understand your audience, adjust how you deliver so that your audience can best receive your message and therefore get the outcome that you want. I don't find that somehow debilitative or limiting or debilitating, I don't know, at all. I find that absolutely empowering. I think that I'm actually the smarter person in that moment that will take the steps to do that. So marketing absolutely informs my way of leading. And I actually find them quite interchangeable. I will always call it, yes, I'm a CEO, but I will always call myself a marketer.
It's really funny. I wrote a book called Taking People With You. It's all based on having marketing insights into people to figure out how to get them on board, move forward. So I couldn't agree with you more. Agencies are supposed to bring their clients big ideas, and so what kind of culture are you trying to create to cultivate a big idea environment? And how can you even do that in a virtual world that you're in right now?
Right. Oh, David, you're walking down a day with me. Yeah. So yes, we are paid for our ideas, and the best way I know how to incent people to bring their best thinking to work is actually to invite them to be their full selves at work. So that starts with the culture first and foremost. That we have a culture that welcomes people to cross our threshold, even if that's a virtual threshold, every day and be exactly who they are. We don't want conformists. We don't want homogeneity. We want you with all your points, all of your idiosyncrasies, all of the specialness that is you. And by the way, that obviously extends into full diversity and inclusion. And so, number one, it's that the people we hire are hired to be their authentic selves, and they are welcomed into our culture that way. When you do that, people have a stability and a security in your environment that they can truly unlock and bring their best thinking. They're not thinking about, oh, well, I shouldn't talk about, this cultural view, or, my religion or my sexual orientation or something. It all is welcome. And so then you can move into kind of bringing all your best thinking. So that's sort of one thought. The other is what we're trying to do a lot is sort of teach what great work looks like. So we're really bringing the work to the forefront of all of our gatherings to say, and here's another piece of good work. So here is the strategy, here is the work, here's why it worked, here were the results, and really continually use our own work, the metaphor, the dog's eating the dog food, really use our own work to set the expectation, to set the bar, and to teach what good looks like, and have sort of radical collaboration across our organization so that we become a constant teaching and learning environment. I often reference that I will always be learning, always be learning. All of us have to. So I think if we can give the security and foundation of being welcoming fully to people, and then really have a sort of notion of setting and teaching, setting the benchmark, setting the bar, sharing and learning together. And then, of course, ultimately working with wonderful clients who give us these incredible briefs and trust us with their brands and live into the responsibility of serving them well and being, students of their brands and their companies. All of that coalesces to really unlocking great ideas that move business and create results.
So Wendy, you have to evaluate ideas all the time. You're looking at them every day, for your clients, So what process do you go through, or what do you ask yourself to really identify a really great idea, a big idea? Because our listeners, they've got to evaluate ideas all the time. What can you tell them that you do that might help them?
Well, okay. First and foremost, I always want to see the strategy. Because evaluating work or any sort of idea or execution without understanding what the intention was doesn't make it. I can see brilliant ideas all day long, but if they're not addressing what the need of a company or brand is, then it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So number one is, let me see the strategy and what we've been asked to achieve and what the outcome has to be. What does the outcome and performance success look like? So number one, so I've got that programmed in my mind when I'm looking at any idea. I know what it's supposed to do. So number one, can it achieve what we've been asked to do, is the number one priority of the work. Number two, I look at it through a lens of, does it have some sort of aspect where is it useful, interesting, share-worthy, compelling? Like, work has to make you feel something, right? We're in a business of moving people, and people are moved by emotions. And so I want some sort of feeling when I look at work. And by the way, that doesn't always have to be happy or sad or emotional. Just like, am I compelled by it? Do I want to, oh gosh, I want to share that on my social networks. I want someone to see it. Does it have a purpose and utility? Gosh, am I smarter because I looked at that and now I understand something I didn't, and there's a utilitarian purpose. You go very quickly through, is it just like wallpaper and you just put it in the pile of the 5,000 brand impacts that US humans have every day? So US consumers see over 5,000 brands every day. So it's either going to go in that pile, or I'm going to feel something that will make me remember it. So that's the second thing. And then the final thing, I think, is, where you want to be is this something that only this brand can do? Could any other brand put their name on the end of this idea? Or is this really so discrete to that strategy and this brand and this moment that people will remember and know that's associated with that brand? So those are sort of the three things I'm going through when I'm looking at ideas and thinking about whether they work.